All right, Tiffany. Part two. You had some more stuff you wanted to say or didn't get to?
Yeah, well, I didn't even really know what to expect from it, so was not prepared for anything. But I was just gonna kind of skip over the childhood part, and there's a few crucial things in my life that I didn't like. There were a big reason for why I ended up where I was at. So
Yep.
I just felt like maybe it would help, I guess, more or less younger women that are struggling and things to maybe second guess before you go ahead and do them. But when I was 18, I started dancing, and then that was probably one of the funnest times of my life. But at the same time, like, I never did the whole prostitution thing or anything like that. But
Dancing, you're talking about stripping?
Yep.
Okay.
And I did that for 3 years before I got pregnant. And my sister had a car accident during that time too, and she went into a coma for a while. I mean, she was pronounced dead. I think it was 3 times. I don't know that for sure, but I know that there was a couple times where she had redlined, and so we almost lost her. And my mom, kind of, when she made it through it all and came home and stuff, like, my mom kind of clung. She still does, you know. I don't want to say it's favoring, but, like, I get it. She almost lost one of her daughters. But, and that's what triggered the dancing. Because I think I was only 17 maybe when she got in the accident. But, my oldest daughter's dad, his sister was a dancer as well. And I idolized her for a while in my life, and so I took it from there. I always was dancer, though. I danced in high school, all that stuff, for the plays even. But and then after that, I went on. Once I started realizing, like, the drinking and how much of the drugs were going on in the strip club, it was insane. Like, you could go into the bathroom at any given time, and there's lines of coke left on the toilet, back in toilet seats and stuff. I just started this big crime spree, and I ended up getting arrested and stuff, which is in turn what ended up in prison after my daughter was born. Too many violations and stuff. But after I got out of prison, I had my first big betrayal happen in my life with my daughter's dad and my sister. And it was bad enough to where I didn't talk to my sister for 2 years. I didn't say one word to her. I wanted nothing to do with her. I'm not going to go into details on that, but one can probably figure it out.
I'm going to stop you real quick. It's going to get hot in here.
It was fine.
But I'm worried about this background noise.
Yep, no, you're
messing
good.
it up.
All
right.
And that was I want to say probably my 12th suicide attempt after that had happened. It got really bad to the point where my mom even knew that was going on with those two. And nobody told me. Like, my friends knew. Nobody told me. One of my friends finally broke down, and she let me know what was going on. And it completely shattered my world. There was somebody for almost 8 years, and you have a ring on your finger. You think you're going to spend your life with somebody. And, yeah. I guess, I don't know. On to the next subject. I lost my girls in 2016, and that was, it wasn't like the day that they terminated my rights. It was the day I realized that there was no chance of me even getting them back. I figured out that my first known spiritual awakening had happened. Like, it was coming to an end. And I had heard that song when I came out of my CPC meeting with the Runaway Train by Soul Asylum. And I've always known that song, but I didn't ever listen to it. And it's been my favorite song since.
It's heavy. It's deep.
Oh, yeah. There's the lyrics in there. One of them is I promised I wouldn't be one more promise I couldn't keep. And my oldest daughter, one of the last visits I had with her, I promised her that I was going to bring her home. I broke that promise. And then when I called her, I still had phone calls for a while after that. And it was a closed adoption, but I didn't know because I didn't show up to court because I was too worried about getting high and a warrant that I had in another county. One of the biggest mistakes of my life was not going to that court date. They changed it from an open adoption to a closed. So on her birthday, she was kind of busy with her birthday party, you know, so I didn't get to talk to her as long as I normally did. And she's like, well, make sure you call me tomorrow night, Mom, so you can read me my bedtime story. Every once in a while, I'd read her story over the phone. And she's like, you gonna promise you're gonna call? And I said, the last words I ever said to her, of course I promise, I'll call you tomorrow. And Jody got on the phone, which is her adopted mom, and she says, I'm gonna stop all calls now. And I haven't seen him since. There was a couple dance recitals that I went to, and I just sat way in the back on the bleachers, but I couldn't, you know, I didn't, that was when I found out that it was a closed adoption. And, I completely stopped caring about anybody or anything. Throughout the next few years, I lost a lot of friends too. Like, people started just dwindling out of my life, either because they're moving forward with their lives and it wasn't pleasing them and they were able to do better things with their life, or car accidents. I don't know how many friends I've lost to car accidents or overdoses and suicide. Like, a lot of people I never thought I would lose that early were gone. I guess from there, which would probably be around, 2017 until would have been last year. It was just a lot of chaotic mess and making a lot of bad decisions, and I had this is probably the biggest thing I wanted to let everybody know. My second spiritual awakening, which I'm still going through, began 3 days before my son was born. Probably it was when I went into labor. That was September 8th. All of a sudden I just woke up that day and I was just got hit in the face with something that I was still using, let alone I had a needle in my arm. And my realization had become a reality that I wasn't going to be able to bring my son home. And the man that I created this baby boy with decided to also end our relationship while I was in the hospital. And I realized, like, I really don't have anybody anymore. Like, he was my rock. Aside from my best friend, Ben. We'll get to that in a minute, too. I had nowhere to go. I had no support from anybody. And so I had to figure that out on my own. I'm still stuck in that little phase, but, my friend Sarah gave me a place to stay for a little while in Iowa. And I tried to make it work, but it's an hour and a half drive every time I needed to visit my son or anything, and I couldn't afford it. So I eventually came back to Rochester, and while I was in Rochester, I got news that Ben, he was my best friend in the whole world. His health had been decreasing pretty rapidly, and the hospital refused his heart transplant because he started using again. And I will never forget this. It was October 19th. The time was 3:28 p.m. He messaged me on Facebook. And he said, they're putting me on hospice today. I literally have never felt my heart stop like it did then. Because through all of the chaotic mess since I met Ben, like, he has been there, like, giving me a place to stay time and time again. Like, no matter what, if I needed him, he was there. He always had the right thing to say. I don't know how many times he stopped me from hanging myself or, like, and then October 22nd was the last time that I saw Ben move on his own or even speak really a whole lot of anything. I went from being able to see it. The minute I got that news, I went down there and I stayed there, you know. And it was 3 days. He went from being able to sit up and talk to me and look at me and have a conversation, even attempt to eat something, to almost a vegetable on. Oh. But October 25th, Ben died. It was around, what is it? I have it written down as 6:48, but I think it was a little bit before that. And the moment I heard that, like, my whole outlook on life completely changed. Like, that's when I was like, I need to know that he's okay. Like, I want to know what happens after you die. Like, there's no way in hell that he's gone. He can't be, you know? I became obsessed with Googling what it feels like to die, and I wasn't getting anywhere with that at all. Nowhere. And, so I all of a sudden ran across a Netflix show, and it was near-death experiences, surviving death, and it was people that had actually died and came back. And there's this one episode, this girl was 3 years old when she died. She fell into a hot spring and, like, boiled alive almost, and her mom managed to pull her out. They were able to bring her back. And for this woman on the TV to explain to me how she felt at 3 years old, to not want to even go back to where she was with her mom or her dad or anything because everything was perfect, like, that calmed me down with my obsession on Googling for a while. And then I, like, ran across another thing on, like, past lives and stuff, and how all the pain or all the troubles that you were enduring throughout your lifetime are life lessons that, or, you know, pain that you caused in a previous lifetime and all this. So now I'm going through this past life regression therapy that I'm trying to figure out or be able to do myself, to figure out what, you know, like, I know that everything that's happening to me is because of my own decisions. I know that. But there's got to be a reason it's so severe with a lot of the suicides and the deaths that I've gone through in my life. And losing my children, and now, like, knowing, like, I've been given so many chances to be able to have my son. Like, it's not common for somebody to be able to keep their child after they've had 2 terminations. And they were giving me that chance, and I'm, like, on my very last straw to be able to do anything. I don't know, my spirituality, though, through all of this pain, like, the spiritual awakening is terrible to have to go through, but it's exciting at the same time. And I want to know how much farther I can take it if I'm sober. Because the dreams, your ability to tune into your subconscious or superconscious is not there fully when you're using. It blocks it out. But I guess, yeah, that's pretty much like where I'm at now. I'm trying to figure out how to live life without my best friend.
I think you have a lot of reasons to fight. And I think you got a lot going for you. You're going to inpatient treatment on Monday. You want to talk about that at all?
It's an inpatient treatment where they specialize more. It's more for mental health problems and how to do that. They have the chemical dependency too, but it's a dual diagnosis, and it focuses on people who have severe mental, disabilities or problems, I guess. I don't really know what to call them, I guess. But I need to figure out how to deal with things or accept them or move on from them and not let them take over my life, and I can't do that when I'm using. But I'm terrified to be sober. I'm terrified to be sober because when you're sober, all that shit comes back. And I have a lot of shit that I pushed away, and I don't want to deal with it. I do just fine. Like, if it weren't for drugs, though, I'll tell you that right now. If drugs were not in my life, I would not be here today. I wouldn't. There's no way in hell I would have been dead years ago because I wouldn't have been able to. I've done the pills, the therapy, and, you try to talk to a therapist, but they don't understand. And then, they just never see anything from your point of view, and I just get angry,
A lot of therapists, they haven't lived it. Some have. But...
yeah. So yeah, I just feel like this helped explain a lot more of my most recent problems and what I'm going through and trying to make everything okay.
No, it was great. You shared a lot, and I'm really glad you did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Good?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. But what really pushed me to this point, besides fighting for my son, to get sober and stuff, I had this moment where I met somebody I'd never met before. Ever. Never seen him in my life. And we were just having a conversation, and he interrupts me in the middle of this conversation, and he pretty much was like, "You lost somebody that was very dear to your heart recently, didn't you?" And kind of came down, "Yeah, I did." And he asked me, and he goes, "Was his name Ben?" And I just looked at this guy like he was insane, because I was just thinking in my head, "This guy's fucking with me. Somebody told him something's going on." And he was like, "Well, he's here, and he has a few things that he wants to say." And I was just like, I did not believe him for the longest time. And then it got pretty serious to a few things that he was mentioning that only me and Ben would have known. And it took me a minute to be convinced, but he had me call somebody on the phone. And it took me a minute to figure out who I was supposed to call. I figured it would be Ben's girlfriend that he had at the time, but it wasn't. And then he had asked me, he goes, "You're supposed to call somebody, and he wants to know about a green t-shirt. What does that mean?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know at all." And it hit me that my really good friend, him and her had dated at one point in their life. And I was like, and she's really in tune with this stuff with me too, and then with her own life. And so I call her up, and I'm like, "So there's this guy here that I'm with. Never met him," and explained everything to her that was going on. And I said, "Hey, just talk to him." And he's like, "Sarah, what's going on? Does Ben and you, does a green t-shirt ring a bell or anything?" And she was just kind of like quiet for a minute, you know, and she goes, "What about the green t-shirt?" And she's like, "'Cause I'm wearing it." I think that's what she said, something about that. And then she's like, "It says fighter jets, or brunettes, not fighter jets." And like, that was when it was just like, Ben is okay. And I know that that's what he would want. For me, just to get my shit together. He promised me he'd meet, you know, he was supposed to be Lincoln's godfather, so he never got to even meet him because I messed everything up. So I just feel like I owe it, not only to myself or Lincoln, but to Ben for everything he did for me. But yeah.
It's really good. I mean, it sounds like you got a message, what you needed at the time. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I really do believe that you have a lot to fight for.
I just am terrified I'm gonna do it for no reason, and he's not gonna come home, and the people he's with now, I'm afraid they aren't gonna let me see him.